Okay, we're live.
Hello everybody and welcome to the November Hangout on Air for the Society for One Place Studies. And this month we're looking at in-depth reports and what you can do to compile your own to add to the website. My name's Janet Pugh. I actually have an in-depth report up on the website, which is why I'm talking to you now. Okay, what's an in-depth report? Well, you'll notice if you're a member of the Society for One Place Studies that as soon as you decide to register a place, you are given a study page. And these really identify your place and give a very brief summary, really, of why you're doing a one-place study, how you're going about it, and a minimal amount of information about your place. The in-depth reports are something different, as the name suggests. They're in a lot more depth, they're more detailed, and you get a chance not just to record a little bit about your methods, but something about the results of your research and maybe conclusions that you've been able to draw about what has been going on in your place in the past. You might be thinking, why do I need to do this? You might have a website of your own, and you may feel that an in-depth report is a bit superfluous, it's a waste of time, and you've got other things you'd rather be doing with your one-place study. Well, I think one of the things that's an advantage of having an in-depth report is the actual discipline of creating it. It means that you go through certain processes for your one-place study that perhaps you haven't thought about before. And it gives you a bit more insight into what's going on in your place. So you actually learn about your place by doing an in-depth report. It helps you bring together your information. Often when we start a one-place study, it's all about transcribing records, adding records to databases, indexing records. But the in-depth report helps to pull that together and turn it into a story, really, and something that's perhaps a little bit more interesting to the wider public than an index of a parish register or an index of a census, for example. It also concentrates your mind most wonderfully, and it does encourage you to really think, maybe on one topic at a time, about your one-place study. And it can, of course, if you already have a website, be a way of directing people back to your website. Certainly, I can see on my own website, who has arrived there via my in-depth report. And I do get quite a bit of traffic in that manner, so it is worth doing. You might be thinking, well, why do I need it? Perhaps you haven't even registered a place yet. So why do you need an in-depth report? Well, it's a good idea right from the beginning to have the in-depth report in mind as a goal, because that might direct your research in a particular direction. You're probably still the expert on that place, even if you are the beginner. You made a start, and perhaps nobody else has looked at that place in the detail that you have already, even if you're just out on this journey. And of course, it isn't a question of producing an in-depth report, leaving it there, done, finished, something static. You can change your in-depth report as needed information comes to light, as your study develops, and as you feel perhaps there's other things be appropriate to put in there. And of course, writing the report itself is part of the progress that you make with your study. And maybe that would encourage you, for example, to write an article, perhaps for our destination newsletter about quarterly, maybe for a local history magazine or a family history society that's in the area where your place is. So then, what is an in-depth report? If you haven't looked at that part of our website, I would encourage you to do so. It's somewhere between 1,000 and 2,500 words. Up to 10 illustrations, and as I've said, it will complement your website. If you haven't yet got a website, perhaps this is the first step towards that website. It will give you that bit more web presence than provided by the study summary that you submit when you register a place. If you think that sounds a bit daunting, there are 10 suggested sections, and you'll find on our website a very good summary of the sorts of things you might like to include in your in-depth report. None of these are compulsory. You don't have to complete the 10 sections. You may only find that some of them are relevant to your particular study. So you can keep the ones that you feel are appropriate for you, and maybe you can keep some of them and then later you add the others. So if you thought 1,000 to 2,500 words sound daunting, actually to break that down, it's only an average of 100 to 250 words for each section, which is really just a paragraph. A good idea in compiling your in-depth report is to set yourself some targets. Don't say, oh, I've got a whole in-depth report to write by next week. Make your target realistic. You might decide to write one of those sections a week, or one a month, or if you've got loads of time, one a day. But give yourself some targets and don't try and do it all at once. Because by breaking it down into small chunks, it becomes much more easily attainable. As I've just said, you don't have to do all 10 sections, certainly not all 10 sections straight away. So I'm going to, through the course of this Hangout on Air, we're going to go through the 10 sections, give you some suggestions. I'm going to give the other people a chance to chip in what they may have done, what they may think they might do in this respect. The first section, which is the overview, which is similar in a way to the study page that we've given at the beginning. It's a little bit about why you're doing a one-place study of a particular place. So it might be there, it might be that's where your ancestors came from, or there might be another reason why you're interested in that place. A little bit about the progress of that study. You may want to say that you're just starting, so you may want to say that you've established the study you've been doing for some time. Because it gives people looking at that in-depth profile an expectation of what they might be getting in exchange if they make contact with you. If you say you're only just starting, then somebody who contacts you is not going to expect to know a huge amount yet, but hopefully you'll still be able to help each other. And you might want to put in what you're working on currently and where you're hoping to go with your study as it progresses. Now it's time for somebody else to say something. So, Kim, you have an in-depth profile for your place. I don't know if you want to comment a little bit about this section.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that clearly.
You want to say what you've done for your in-depth profile as regards the first section, the overview section?
Yeah, I think I'll have to go back and take a quick look, but I'm sure I just explained why I chose Bratton Clovelly, which had to do with it being the ancestral home of my grandmother, and that my one-place study had grown out of a one-name study. You could say something a little bit more about the place itself. For example, I might have mentioned that it's a rural parish and lots of farms and cattle and stuff, but something that just kind of introduces the place and gets people to understand where your interest comes from.
Susie, did you want to add anything?
No, in fact I haven't actually done one yet, so I'm looking for inspiration from you and Kim.
Okay, that's excellent.
It really is true that a lot of people could take most of the overview section right from their about your study, because about your study is really kind of why and what approach you're using. In the overview, that's a good place, because the rest of the in-depth report will really be more what you've actually found out about your place, or what you're in the process of learning about your place.
Okay. Okay,
well, we'll move on to section 2 then. Section 2 is a little bit about the geography, and Kim has already just alluded to this a little bit. But here's your chance to go into more detail about exactly where your place is. Remember, we are a worldwide organisation. Coincidentally, both Kim and I have studies in Devon, which is in the southwest of England. But if somebody is looking at this in America or New Zealand or Australia or Holland or one of the other places where we have members, they may have no idea where Devon is, don't have expectations that people are going to know where your place is just because you do. And you might want to talk about the type of community. Is it a street in a city? Is it a small rural area? Is it a coastal area? Is it an industrial area? Just so people have some idea the sort of place that it is. And often, of course, places have changed over time. So what may have started, let's say, as an agricultural area might now be a tourist centre. And then what is literally the geography, the physical geography like, and maybe a bit about the climate, back to your school geography lesson, and describe the place to someone who's never been there. If someone is looking to contact you, perhaps they've got a family who's interested in your place, and they may never visited it, they may never have the chance to visit it, so now it's your opportunity to tell them exactly what it's like if you were to go there.
Janet?
Yep.
One of the simplest things you can do on this is this is a good place, especially if you're visiting your place, to actually just kind of paint a little picture verbally and maybe with a photograph as well of when you look at your place, what does it look like? Is it hilly? Is it mountains? Is a sea there? The other place that I found some interesting little information is in directories, because it tends to give whole things like soil types and the like, and that's like really important in my place, because my place is all in clay, so it's really hard to do anything with that place except kind of use, you know, let the animals out for pasturing and everything. So directories are a nice little start on it as well. And if you kind of like things like archaeology and the like, you know, if you can get into some more of the geology if you're that kind of bent. So I was so hoping that mine was sitting on Devonian limestone, but I don't think it actually is, so I had to kind of skip that part. But I just thought it was quite exotic to have a geologic age, you know, named after part of Devon. So you can really take, the point is you can take each of these sections and, you know, explore the things that interest you about those sections, and everybody will have kind of some different things that they're researching and that they're finding out and that they're thinking about.
Thank you, Kim. And actually, you did hint on a good way to cheat in this section, because, of course, if you can find one of those directory descriptions of the geography of the place, providing you reference it properly and don't just make it look like you've invented it, you can actually quote from a directory. Say, here is a description of my place from such and such a directory of 1850 or whatever. So you actually don't even have to make this section up for yourself if you don't want to. So there is a way of cheating. I am going to talk about how you might illustrate sections to go along if there's anything appropriate, but we will come back again to the illustrations in general, maybe at the end. So we'll do both. Right, section 3. Section 3 is about population. So an obvious thing to include here is population totals at various times. Remember, somebody looking at this in-depth report is probably going to have no idea just how big your place is, or was, because population, of course, varies both up and down over the decades. Maybe you've got data from census returns. There are a number of websites that give you population totals. Normally they're getting from census reports as well, but it is a good way of giving people an impression of just the size of place you are dealing with. Certainly, if you look at the members of the Society for Non-Place Studies, we have people who are looking at a single building, but obviously the population total barely reaches double figures most of the time. And we have people who are looking at quite large areas, doing their one-place studies in very different ways for obvious reasons, but gives people some idea of who's involved. And maybe if you're looking at, say, a parish, UK views of administration, you might find that within that parish there's perhaps a village or another cluster of housing, a hamlet, then you might want to identify where within that geographic area the centres of population were. The rest might be scattered homesteads or farms. And how the population distributed amongst those sort of population centres. And then you might want to produce something like the illustration there, basically a population pyramid showing you how many males and how many females of various ages there are at a given point in time. Usually, of course, data such as this from something like a census return. You can then do a series of these and perhaps compare how things change over time. The typical profile is an equilateral triangle. If your place, as it inevitably will, differs from that, then that does tell you certain things about the nature of that place. There are various instructions for how to create these city pyramids using something like an Excel spreadsheet, a spreadsheet program. You can Google how to create a population pyramid using whatever your spreadsheet program is. Probably some free instructions will pop up there for you. James, if you want to comment on this particular section.
Yeah, this can be a really fun section. And if you're, a lot of people do take a fairly early look at population. So if you found out something about it, you know, declining when everybody else seems to be growing or things like that, that's fair game. The other thing that that this is a good place for is some of the history. So, for example, if you've had jurisdiction changes that make a significant difference to your population. I had that back in 1885, where a big chunk of my parish was kind of realigned. You can mention things like that, or you can go back further in history. For example, when Janet mentioned the centers of population, well, my parish, I think at the time of Doomsday, was 3 separate manors, and actually one part of the parish is completely detached. You can talk about some things like that too, if various places came together over time to form your place. And those places, although it's all one parish now, there's still hamlets with the names of those very ancient manors that disappeared probably by about 1200. So again, another one where take off in the direction that your own research has gone, and any of those things can be covered here.
Now, Susie, as someone who hasn't done this yet, does that sound something that would be attainable for you?
Yes, it does. In fact, I have got a couple of graphs somewhere buried on my website about population at the times of each of the censuses. So I've done a bit of work on it. It's just that I haven't pulled it all together into a coherent report.
Well, as we said, this is your chance to do that. And as
yes,
the process of producing the in-depth report, you suddenly realise that you've got all this data in a coherent way, as you say, that you can use in your website or in some other way.
Yes, I've not heard of a population pyramid before, but
yeah. I was a geography teacher in another life by mistake. That's where this came in. Yeah.
And Susie, there's some really good YouTube videos that show you it's quite easy to do in Excel, and there's some nice little videos out there. But thinking about just for people who are just starting, just make your simple population chart, and you can get those numbers by going to each census and just seeing how many records are in each census, or you can go to hispop.org, which is just a fantastic site for population information, and get those. And as much as I hate to mention it, because Wikipedia is not my favorite place, but if you want, today's population for places, so I think you can pick up on HISPOP up to about 1931 or so, but if you want today's, or maybe even sometimes a little bit later, today's population, you can almost always pick up from Wikipedia as well, too. So to get the basics of, you know, when was it growing, when was it going down, certainly from about 1800 on, that's quite a straightforward thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good. I'm inspired.
Now, of course, we're three of us in the room. I'm assuming there's only three of us because I can't see. We have a UK perspective, and obviously, though Wikipedia population figures will be international, we do appreciate that there are different sources for this kind of thing depending upon where your place is, and hopefully people who have got non-UK places chip in with information afterwards has been viewed and perhaps put things on the Google Plus feed that would make some suggestions as to what you could look for, let's say if your place was in Australia or wherever. But the HISPOP site that Tim mentioned is certainly excellent for our area. Now, history, well, I mean, obviously, try and ask you to compile a section about the history of your place. You know, it's a bit overwhelming. This is really not to write everything you ever know about the history of your place from the Stone Age to yesterday, but you can just outline maybe some key events, what's gone on in your place, perhaps a very brief timeline instead, just to give some sort of idea of what's gone on. Now, this clearly, you know, it isn't incidentally a rigid thing that each section can be no more than 250 words. So you might decide to rob some of the other 9 sections in order to devote more words to each section, for example. But it is a summary. It's not everything that you perhaps eventually maybe put into a book or on a website. Kim, what have you done for yours on this? I can't. Do you remember? Because I can't.
Not so much, but I'd like to mention another one out there that that Baldwin did on Hoar Oak Cottage. So he thinks about her place a lot in terms of the history and the periods in history. For example, what was going on in the 1700s, what was going on in the 1800s. And for those of you who kind of like to think about it in those terms, go take a look at the layout of her report. We worked together, and she's got it really kind of laid out in just those terms with different sections kind of for each century or particular time period. And I think in that, my recollection is she combined like the history and economic information in those. So there's flexibility in these things. Again, it's what interests you and how do you think about your place, and we can certainly work with anybody. The main thing is to, you know, get your research down and what you found and what you're thinking about, and you know, not let the writing of it be a great obstacle. It's the important thing is to share the information with others.
And certainly, although we have made some suggestions as to what the sections might be and how you might divide it up, that was really as a way of assisting you, so that if someone says, just write 2,500 words and give no guidance or suggestions at all, it's a surefire way of picking everybody up ever doing an in-depth report. But the suggestions are there, but they're not prescriptive in any way. If you've got another way of coming up with your roughly 2,500 words, if it's 2,501, nobody's going to count and take one off or anything like that. It's just some idea of the sort of length. But you're absolutely free to do it in your own way if that's what you prefer. The experience suggests that actually you might need a bit more guidance. One of the other in-depth talks out there, which is Chapman Street in Market Raisins, which is a single street. Well, this, of course, wasn't built until the 1860s. So obviously, the key events in the history of that place only have 150-year history because it didn't exist before then. So that's the sort of thing to mention. If your place is something that doesn't have a long history, then mention that.
Now I remember, Janet, what mine was. Now I remember when you said that. There's other places like mine where I think I started about 4,000 or 5,000 years ago and kind of walked my way through. So we want to see the variety in the studies, and they all will be different.
And that's the beauty of this. There are as many ways of doing one-place studies as there are places. And really, as long as you are studying a place, you're doing a one-place study. And exactly how you do it within that group is very individual. And that's, you mentioned something that you might want to say at the beginning of your in-depth report. Now, as you said, Kim, sometimes the history and the economy very much mixed in together. We have used that as a subheading for one of the sections. The chance now to look at key industries and occupations. Again, something that might lend itself to a pretty little chart. If you want to look at a chart, you might want to look at how many people were engaged in particular occupations for certain points of time. And of course, many places have industries that have come and gone. So you might want to look at change over time, how perhaps an area that had a major employer might have a factory that's been closed down, might have completely complexion. Now, places that were thriving in the 19th century are now dormitory villages with very little industry within them. So, a chance to talk about that. I think I say how do we change over time. So this is something that makes your place different from others. Very much the occupation going on in your place. What is it? Its character. Plenty of scope there. Or maybe you might want to look at a particular business and a major employer in your place and just write a little bit about how that came about.
And sometimes this part's going to tie in with your your migration part too, because you may well discuss here, why did people come to your place to begin with? I like the one somebody studying that their place kind of really took off when people started to see it as a coastal spa area and the like. Or why did everybody up and leave your place? And that's probably going to feature in your economy discussion. Now, you may not be to that point in your research. That's fair enough, and just start with your occupational analysis, which you can get by looking at a census year or comparing several census years. But the economy one can be really interesting as kind of that thing that either got people there or got people out.
Susie, did you want to comment at that point?
No, I don't think so. Most of my lot are all ag labs, and there wasn't an awful lot of movement, other than when they got sent to prison.
Even that, where as many places are, certainly in the 19th century, you saw primarily agricultural. Not all agricultural places are the same, because you might be where.
I mean, to be fair, I'm oversimplifying a bit, because we are a small, a village, and so we have got shops and stuff. So we have had quite a few shopkeepers, and at one time, sort of 15 or 16 pubs. Almost every other shop in the main street was a pub at one time, and so there was quite a lot going on actually.
Okay. You might want to look at places of worship, past and present, in your place. If you know when they were established, that's great. And of course, a number of places of worship are no longer places of worship, so you may want to be able to say, well, there used to be a chapel here, it opened in the 1830s and closed in the 1960s, or whatever it might have done. Make it clear what denomination these places of worship are. And certainly don't just limit this to Christian places of worship, because many places have a variety of cultures and places of worship of all faiths in them, particularly if you start to bring it into the 20th and 21st century. So let's look at that. If you have any kind of feeling for how many people worship in those places, let's have a look at that. Certainly for the UK, there was a census in 1851 which gives you this information. It tells you what the places of worship of all denominations were, and it tells you who the ministries, and it tells you when the congregation was established, if you know, and how many people attended church on that particular day. Also, the religious census of 1851, the entire National Archives, and a number of counties put these now print. Again, Kim mentioned directories earlier. That's a good way of finding out what the places of worship were, or of course just walking around your place and having a look. You might have names of ministers, clergy, leaders of congregations. There might have been somebody who was particularly notable at a ministry in your place. You can mention them. And you might want to talk about events such as the bell tower falling down or major renovations to a church or a chapel. The last one, that one is that. Any comments on that one?
I was just thinking, Janet and I both have studies in Devon, and in fact, not that far from each other. Hers is in North Devon, and mine is in West Devon. And thinking about kind of notable characters, we're used to seeing some quite notable Anglican clergymen, and a lot of the fellows in that time, in say the 19th century and the like, were quite learned people in publishing. But there's also some quite charismatic nonconformist about as well, and Janet and I both have large populations of what were the Bible Christians in our area, so we may have some different religious movements going on. I know, looking, I've got a group down in Cornwall, and John Wesley used to go down there and preach to them at Gwinnett. So, you know, you can talk about those special events that maybe actually changed some of the worship patterns in your parish or the like. But I agree with Janet. Directories are really good on some of the church and worship side.
Right. We'll move on to what we call community life. And just to give you a bit of a hint at where we're going from with this one, it's really what is special about your particular place, what goes on there on a daily basis, or what used to go on there on a daily basis for the inhabitants. So it gives you quite a lot of scope here to talk about your particular place and how it might be perhaps different from somebody else's place.
Actually, while you're talking about that, there was a really excellent article in Destinations. I think it was last release. I think Alex wrote it, and it was the walk of a gentleman through the village, chatting to people, and I saw her village in a totally different light because I saw it through his eyes, and it was really, really good.
I mean, again, there's no rules and regulations. It gives you a chance to put in something about the local market, or maybe a particular celebration that's unique to your village. Maybe something we have certainly in UK. Various villages have certain folk customs that perhaps have been going on for centuries. I'm thinking of the Lewis bonfires down in Sussex, where they burn these a lot. We have places that bizarrely roll cheeses down hills. We have fertility dances in Padstow in what they call Obios Day. So there are a number of things like this that are unique to that particular place. You might have something in your place, some strange folk custom that perhaps goes back to medieval time. And now is your chance to talk about that under this particular section.
Yeah, a couple things on that. Don't want to sound like a broken record, but again, directories have some good overview information, like they do on all these topics. But this thing I've got on my to-do list for someday after I retire, which is very soon, but is that I went through the newspapers and went through a decade of newspapers just looking for every mention of my place, and kind of saved off the little article for each time I found one, and it's really interesting because there's actually a whole lot of the routine community life stuff in the newspapers. So you'll see the markets, and you'll see the fairs they have, and you'll see the celebration of the Friendly Society anniversaries and things like that. And I just want to take those articles now and just lay them out on a little calendar, and actually lay out kind of that picture of all those kind of ongoing periodic events that really were quite central to keeping the community together.
Thank you, Kim.
I can see Kathleen talking, but I can't actually hear anything. Kathleen, have you got your mic muted?
I'll carry on, shall I? And hopefully
It's
she'll...
okay. No, I think Kathleen's mic's still muted.
Well, I'll carry on, and hopefully
Yes.
she'll come up with a live mic by the time we get to the discussion at the end. Institutions in your place, I mean, clearly the first thing you think of is the pub and schools, but there's other things, there's hospitals, there may be a workhouse. This particular illustration actually is what was known as the vagrants ward, which was a bit like a workhouse, but on a much smaller scale. One. You may have not just an institution but a service in your place. So has your place got a doctor? Has it got a priest house and a priest? Now is the time. Has it got a reading room or a library? What are the clubs and societies? And we've already talked a little bit about that under community life. But was there a football club? Friendly societies, which were very, very common in the 19th century. What kind of people who lived in your place actually do in the rare occasions they weren't working in? What were the opportunities for leisure in your place? And again, a wonderful opportunity here for illustrating some of these. The pubs are still there, schools are still there, but sometimes they're not. And particularly in more recent times, when a number of these communities have been taken away from this great people, maybe people to preserve that. Have you got Kathleen with a mic yet?
Yep.
No, Kathleen's still muted.
Okay, so Kim, over to you then.
I think that no matter what size your place is, even the tiniest place, you're probably going to have some pub that's been there forever, and maybe, I mean, even my small place has had several schools, not anymore, but has had those sorts of things. But just those sorts of things that are really, characterize your place and have some permanence in your place, and that everybody in the place would recognize and know. Yeah, I'd like to see some other, find out what some of the institutions are in some of the larger places actually, because it's going to be quite different. I only have a school, a church, and a pub to choose from, so that'd be an interesting one.
And you're not obliged to write in full sentences and paragraphs. You want to just make a list then that's fine. Make a list, and maybe with some indication of dates when you work consistent. But it doesn't have to be beautiful, extended prose. Find it easier, like more something more in this fashion, then that's perfectly acceptable. Travel and migration, we have thinking about that. What about transport systems and routeways? Where's the nearest railway station to your place, and when did it open? Where is the main road from your place go to? Go to places of small village. Where's the nearest big town, and how did you get there? And remembering that the main road today might not be the main road historically. And then the people who come into your place, where are they likely to come from? Why is your place likely to be a magnet to people from other places? And how far might they have come? A little graph like this that shows you that people might have come from the next door village or somewhere within 5 miles or further afield. And again, these are things that might well change over time. And then, what about the people who leave your place? Why are they going? Is it such a terrible place? Is something happening in your place? Or is there a lack of employment? A major employer is no longer functioning in your place? And where are they going? Certainly, for places in Europe, often there is a lot of out-migration. If you have a place in America or Canada or Australia or New Zealand, you're far more likely to have a place that is attracting people in. And where have they come from? They have a European origin. Often people who are leaving Europe are staying together in small enclaves, so we will have a high number of Germans in migrant classes. And it can be broken down to even smaller than that. Certainly in my part of the world, the people left North Devon, someone went to Canada, and specific places in Canada as well. So there's often a close correlation between place A and place B. Sometimes if you're out of Europe, your place names give you the clue, because you may have street names or town names that are actually names of places in Europe, which is where your political techniques come from. There's a lot of clue here and a lot of scope for quite detailed study. Hold that thought, because next year our society shared project is going to be on migration. So if you can't write this section by the end of next year, Tim and I won't be going to do a good job, because we're going to be using that. And whereas we've done work on the First World War this year, we will be looking at orphan migration next year. So Kim, I know you're in full flow on migration, so now's your time.
I just happen to be doing an assignment on migration for my local history course I'm taking, so I'm quite interested in this area. But don't forget the absolute basics, like when the railways came to your place. Okay, that's kind of a big deal wherever you are. You know, and you might even be able to go find out quite a bit on the road systems. In fact, I only discovered this week that there's actually a journal out there called the Journal of Transport History. So I just think it's wonderful, and I'm going to find out more. The other thing, remember, with your migrants, you might, again, have some notable characters amongst those migrants. You know, someone who, for example, I've got Huguenot ancestors, and we study a family in Bethnal Green and them bringing of the silk weaving trade with the migrants. Things like that can all will be of interest to others.
Kim, you and I are probably related.
Yeah, I think anybody with Huguenot ancestry, as best I can tell, is probably related if they were true London, because I think they all intermarried. We'll have to talk.
Yes.
There's two ways of looking at migrants. You can look for whole movements of migrants, like the Huguenots or the Jews or whatever, and you can look at it at an individual named person level, and almost anything in between, really. So there are lots of ways of dealing with it. And of course, historically, and we've talked about roads and railway, but actually, And many people, the easiest way of moving was on water. So either along a coast or along a river, because our roads were fairly impassable historically. So bear in mind that if there is a movement of people, it might not necessarily be along a road. That's something to think about, particularly in the past. Okay.
Another
Families.
thing on this, Janet, is I think that previously I used to think a lot about overseas migration because I was always trying to figure out, how England connected to my own family and stuff like that. But now, right now, lately, my real interest has been in local migration and migration, say, within 20 miles of the place. And the more I read and learn, the more I'm finding out that even in medieval times, local migration can really be extremely high. So there's lots of aspects that can be of interest if you're looking into that topic.
We have mentioned famous people as we've gone along. Now might be your chance to talk about not just individuals, but actually families. Are there families that have remained in your place over the centuries? So dynastic families, the ones that have been there forever. And if you were to tell someone about your place, perhaps you would pick up 5 or 6 surnames that seem to have lasted through the decades in your area. And obviously, if someone is looking to contact you for a family history reading, these are key things to put in your in-depth report. Come up with the names of families who've been there forever and a day. And then, of course, anybody who's particularly notable happens to be in your place. If there is anybody indeed. Certainly the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography, and by national I'm afraid we're back in the UK, there are equivalents in other countries, of course. For us, that Dictionary of National Biography is searchable by place, it's searchable online. You have to access it through what they call a participating subscribing. Most public libraries are. So you can sit at home with your library card, your local library, the books that you still have one and hasn't been closed, and you type in your library card number and you can access that as opposed to by place. And when I did that for my places, I was actually quite surprised. That even if you find like I'm studying, grow ups and these people who were obviously notable on quite a national scale. The person who you're looking at is one of my places, certainly late entry in the Dictionary of National Biography, but he was a very important person in his own community. He wrote quite a number of newspaper articles. The one I'm looking at was about him catching fox in a fishing net. So we could go there. But there may be people who are famous in a local level as well as famous to the wider public. Any comment, Kim?
Yeah, this your Captain Blonde, isn't it? This fellow.
Yeah.
So he's related to everybody in Janet's village. I think people kid about dueling banjos land in America. Boy, oh boy, we've got it here. But I've got a completely different situation, and I did something quite different with this section. I've had in my parish, it's quite rural, but it's always experienced quite high people turnover and transition, even back into medieval times. And so what I got interested in was looking at kind of the prevalence or frequency of surnames through the centuries. And so I've got a little summary of kind of some of the key surnames that I found, because at almost no time, it was just an absolute rarity, if ever, throughout history, more than maybe 3 or 4% of the whole village had the same surname. So again, a quite different situation depending on depending on your own place.
Okay. There is an other section, which of course is carte blanche to say exactly what you like that is appropriate to your place, but really didn't quite fit in any of the sections that you've already mentioned. You might here want to talk about the mechanics of your study a little bit. So I am at the moment working on whatever class of record you happen to be working on, or you may be working on a topic. I've already mentioned the First World War, for those of you working on that, that's something that you might want to mention here. Because when you moved on from the First World War to study something else, you can go back and you can change your in-depth report to reflect what you are now doing. Here's an ideal opportunity to ask for help. I would be particularly interested in hearing from anybody who has memories of the 1950s or photographs or whatever you happen to be concentrating on at the time, or just help me, anybody, contact me. Ideal advert opportunity. Or you may want to describe projects that you have actually finished. So you might say, I've transcribed all the gravestones in my case. Going back to migration, I am collecting details on everybody who appears to have left my place for an overseas destination. Whatever your project happens to be, anything else. Did you use this section for yours, Kim?
No, but see, Janet and I was just thinking about that. Janet and I had a little bit of an advantage because we were writing ours at the time that we were figuring out what should be the list of sections. So every time we came up with something that didn't quite fit in, we just added another thing to the list. So I don't think I used this, Janet, because we hadn't finalized the recommended sections at that point. But the idea of this was that it's not meant to be a definitive list, and we see even the sections we talked about evolving. But what we don't want the guidelines, while we'd like kind of a bit of a common look and feel to things, we really do not want to get so prescriptive that people feel like the basic structure becomes an obstacle to them. And that was why I like Beth Baldwin, who's got a very different study where she's studying one shepherd's cottage out on Exmoor. Some of these sections really didn't quite work. She didn't have too many institutions out there, for example, and things like that. You know, maybe not too many politics. Well, probably some politics, but she had all her story was about all these shepherds coming down from Scotland and the like, and in addition, her story included quite a bit about all they've done with the Friends of Coro Cottage too, which has been a marvelous sort of thing. So just remember, just speak up. The writing is not supposed to be the obstacle. What these are is just actually, hopefully, to just help people to think about the sorts of things that might be of interest to others.
And of course, here is an opportunity perhaps directly to your website. And I know a number of our members are working with individuals, but a number equally are working on behalf of the local history group, for example. So here is perhaps an opportunity to write details of that local history group, or maybe if you're not working as part of that local history group, you may still want to refer to it. And then you might want to write down here books that have been written about your place, articles, and again you can go back to not just your own website, but maybe there are other relevant websites that you might want to highlight. Maybe some links can go in here to other web pages that are of relevance, and give people an opportunity to go beyond your 1,000 to 2,500 words. That is there. So this is again an advert opportunity for you.
So the in-depth reports that we've got so far, have they been done as PDF files that are on our website or on our study pages, or are they integrated with the website?
They're integrated with the website. But Susie, I think that we were, in fact, I was just typing a note to Kathleen on exactly that. I may not need to send this now, Kathleen. But Susie, I think then we took, it was actually, it wasn't that easy to get those back off in a form that you could use to kind of show those things at an event in PowerPoint or the like. So you might want to think about having a PDF version available. That might actually be a good idea.
Yes, because a lot of this stuff I've already got in various guises on my website.
Yeah.
But it's not all pulled together in a nice cohesive form like it is in the in-depth reports.
Yeah.
But also, on the in-depth reports, it would be nice to be able to have hyperlinks back to my website for more details.
That's absolutely fine. You can have hyperlinks all over the place on it, just like you can have hyperlinks on your study page. That's no problem at all. The easiest thing, in my view, is if, and what I was writing to you, Kathleen, is if you're putting together your report, just stick it in Word, make it look like you want it to look like. Okay, you know, in fact, I know the guidelines say send the images separately, but that's just in case somebody starts sending a bunch of 4 megabyte images, you know. Just put it together how you want it to look, in Word or a text file. It doesn't really matter, and then we can get that on the page. It's actually, I just do cut and paste on the different sections and stick the images, and it's not that big a deal. And oh, you know, if you have other formats that you want to send it in, I'm sure that would be workable too. But what I'm thinking is we may want on the website, we may also want to add a PDF version, so if somebody wants to get a printout of it or the like, that's an easy thing to do. Have to think about that.
Mm.
There is also the opportunity to list the resources you've used, so the sources that you've used so far, what you've indexed, what you've transcribed. And this is actually quite useful because, again, it gives somebody looking at that in-depth report some idea of how far down the one-place study road you are. Obviously, one-place studies don't emerge fully formed. You're starting off, you won't have indexed every record in the world, but give people some idea of what you do have, what you don't have, what you hope to have in the future, so that they've got an impression of really how developed your study is. And nobody's expecting it to be fully developed. You don't feel that you can't write an in-depth report because you've been doing this for years and you've got a mass of data. You can write an in-depth report because you've got something to do with the plan. It actually can be quite early on. As you pointed out, the fact compiling an in-depth report pushes your study further on, and it's easy to say, you know, you've got this material, but perhaps it's not really organised in a coherent, concise way. So now is the make that progress.
And Susie, here again, you can have hyperlinks in there. You can have books. I think I always keep an eye out for the books that Janet's listing under her sources. I always learn something from that. Or you can just list like the record sets that you've used. And I'm sure that from several of the reports out there, I picked up ideas of record sets that I really hadn't thought very much about using. So I actually find those sections quite helpful.
Yes. Okay.
And it probably is worth pointing out that just because you've done the in-depth report and you put it on Society on her study website, through your material, there's absolutely nothing to stop you putting something identical on your own website if that's what you want to do, or using the same text in a book or an article or anything like that. And there is claim on what report or the senior disclaimers and this that anyway, it is still your copyright. Not take that from you in any way, shape or form. That's really quite important. say that. The illustrations, while we're talking about copyright, photographs, I would hesitate to recommend using a photograph that has people who may still be alive on it, unless of course you've got their permission. Maps, again, there are copyright implications, and being an international society, we have to point out that copyright regulations are very, very different in different countries. And we do ask that you're absolutely sure that any illustrations you're sending are completely copyright free. And it isn't as simple as saying it's 70 years old, it's out of copyright. So please be very, very careful. Maps are always a bit of a dodgy one, unless they're, of course, they're sketched out created yourself. Again, you want to include copies of original documents, really images of whatever repository holds that original document. Not enough to just put, I got this from Ancestry in the bottom. It's quite clear that you've got permission. You need to expect whether images appeared the copyright, because you can't go back and steal copyright on every single illustration that is on apart from the fact that in many cases you don't know where to go. Charts and graphs, you created those yourself, absolutely no problem with those. You have to be aware of the copyright implications, and they will be different places.
We get a lot of questions on the photos, even for the study pages. Just either, if you've taken it, that's great. If somebody else has taken it and told you you can use it on a website, that's great. If it's really old, like 100 years old, that's great. Or if it says it has Creative Commons license, that's great. You just need to let me know when you send those things in that they do have Creative Commons license, and we can cite them appropriately on the website. Yeah, just need to. It's not hard, and there's a lot of stuff out there that's just fine, but you just need to be aware of it.
Yes, for example, there is copies of doomsday entries which you can get online, and they are part of the Creative Commons, and there's a specific form of wording that you have to use to credit that you are able to use those images. But you do need to be really, really careful with that.
And we've got a number of those on the website now.
Yeah. Right. We can help. Have a look at the few in-depth reports that there are on the website at the moment. One of the things I said when I took over at the AGM as chair was that one of the things I wanted to try and do this year is get more in-depth reports on there. And I think it is a bit of a snowball effect, because the more there are on there, the more people will look and have ideas about what they might do. Have a look. Because we've all done things slightly differently. I'm not alone. I have 3 places, but only one of my 3 places has an in-depth report. So I'm as guilty as most of us. I haven't done all 3 of my places yet, but at least I have done one. So do see if you can come up with something. And as I say, have a look at the ones that are there. Ask for advice. We did think that we may use destinations perhaps to take one of these sections in turn. Okay, it's going to take 2.5 years to get to the end, but with a bit more detail. That's
a good idea.
Yeah, I haven't quite worked out who's going to write that yet, Susie. The idea at the moment. And so we may well be taking it further, but certainly we hope that this session will be helpful as well. And there is a written version of all the 10 sections with a bit of text, and Kim and I did a bit of a brainstorm, but Kim has done the work on that, so thank you very much, Kim. And I have shamelessly used it in order to prepare these slides. So again, thank you very much. but it is out there.
I just want to add, we got a little message from Christine, who's still having some problems with her microphone. Back on the photos and the like, I don't know if everybody's familiar with, oh, Christine, I can't remember, it's geograph, possibly.org.uk, but if you type in geograph, where I think they're trying to like photograph like every inch of this stuff. I don't know, maybe of the British Isles, but there is some fantastic stuff out there. I know that I use some of it on my own Bratton Covelli site, but it's definitely worth checking out. So I had mentioned Creative Commons license. I think all of the geograph stuff is, again, available to be used on websites. They intend it for use. So please check that out, and you may well find something on your place.
All I can say is just please make a start. Coming up to the time for New Year's resolutions. Let's make the New Year's resolution that we might get ourselves an in-depth report, or a bit of an in-depth report sooner rather than later. And I will say good luck. Make a start, please. Do something. Put it out there, and believe me, it will increase inquiries to your website. It will encourage people to share information with you. And certainly there's already quite a bit of exchange of information amongst members of the society. Personally, I've already found 3 places that are registered, 2 places where my ancestors came from. And they're not places that I've registered. So it's kind of 2-way exchange. Brilliant. And the more publicity you've got for your one-place study, the greater that is going to be. I'm now going to unshare my screen so I can join in the conversation. But Kim, have you got any particular...
I just want to say, just anybody who's trying to get a start or the like, just remember, we're there to help. We'd love to help. We'd love to hear from anybody who wants to put a little time and effort into it, and we'll make sure it happens.
Yes, thanks, Kim. I appreciate that. It's a question of getting it into a cohesive form. I know one thing you said is don't worry about the writing, just get it all together. Yeah. But that's the bit that does worry me. Because what I've found is that I feel quite comfortable if I'm quoting somebody else on my website. So I'll put a quote out of something or other and give it the correct attribution. I feel less comfortable about saying what I think about that. I mean, I could have paraphrased it, but I guess I feel a bit apprehensive about putting my spin on what I've read.
Oh, don't. I do it all the time, Susie. Come on, it's your study, okay? You do the best you can. It signs your name, you know. It's you put out there, and I think you did. It's really a lot. Just a matter of confidence too. You know, you got to think about how much do other people know about your place. You know, I mean, what you're sharing, and you're sharing the best information that you have at the time. I've had to go back and change my report several times now. You know, I had some things wrong. I'm learning all the time, and I'm learning new things. So don't worry about it. Just, you know what you found, and understand people will appreciate the sharing.
Yes, I feel really worried that somebody's going to ring me up and say, you know what you said on that page? Well, that's absolutely rubbish.
Well, and you know, again, we'll work through 2 things on it. One, we're happy to proofread it. We're happy to look for, anything. In addition, if you kind of have chunks that you can't quite figure out how to pull together, we're happy to work with you with that. Take the chunks and say, here, Jenny, that's absolutely fine too.
Oh, thank you for that, Kim. I really appreciate it.
What would be helpful, and I know there are a number of people who have said they're going to be watching this without joining us in the room, or else be watching it at a later date. If there are ideas, particularly ideas in a bit, I apologise for being sort of UK-centric, right, because that's our particular areas of expertise, but clearly this is something that needs to be done for all the one places, wherever they happen to be. So if people have got suggestions for resources and tools that would help with one in-depth reports, for example, websites that provide population statistics for places outside the UK, that kind of thing. If they could either put something on the Google Plus feed or on Facebook or email us or comment on the forum on the website, all those things, and just do that and then share that with everybody else. You don't know everything about everywhere by a long chalk.
Excellent.
Any more comments anyone would like to make? And before we talk to close?
No, that's been really helpful, because I've been putting it off for so long now. Every so often I open up Kim's précis of what should be in an in-depth report, and I think, oh no, that's so difficult, and I go and do something else. So I'll get to grips with it, I promise.
Yes, I think the key is just to take one section at a time, and obviously you don't have to do the sections in the right order. So take one that is appropriate to what you're working on already, or one that appeals, or one that is particularly applicable to your place, and just make a start. And the hardest bit is that very first, it's that much in the book, isn't it? First sentence is always the most difficult. So just focus on one of the 10 sections at a time.
Or optionally, Susie, you got this stuff laying around. I know that. Just say, okay, over the next week, I'm just going to gather up what I got on these topics, okay, and just send it along. You know, do that. Try that.
Yeah.
That's fair game, okay?
Yeah. All right, I will.
All right, I heard it. We heard it on air.
Broadcast to the nation and the world.
Oh, Kim, you're a hard taskmaster.
Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us, everybody who's listening, either live or later on. And as Kim has said, we're here to help. You get in touch. You learn from the other in-depth reports that are already out there. If you're listening to this and you're not a member, then keep checking back on the website and check up on us and our fellow members and to see how we've done with uploading our in-depth reports. Because one day there may be an in-depth report in there about a place that you're interested in, and that's the way that we can help you. So thank you everybody in the room. Thank you, Susie, for mastering the technology for us. Hi, Kathy. And thank you, Kim, for all your input, both on the website and for today.
And just think about this. If all our members just came up with a few pages on the mass of understanding they have about their places, it'd just be an absolutely formidable source of knowledge. Okay, just think about what we could do together if we started to actually really show people what we've learned about our places. It's really quite. I think it could be quite remarkable.
Okay, right. Well, we'll say goodbye then. I won't say good night because it's evening for some people.
Yes.
Take us off air. We'll see you again for another hangout in January on migration.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Kim. I'm going to stop the broadcast now.
Hi, Christine. Bye.